And thank you so much to Leonardo Energy for your great support in hosting this webinar. I wanted to provide just a brief introduction to the International Smart Grid Action Network for those of you who may not be familiar with us. So we are an initiative hosted under two bodies, the International Energy Agency and the Clean Energy Ministerial. We are a strategic platform for supporting high-level government knowledge transfer and action to accelerate development and deployment of smarter, cleaner electricity grids around the world. We are organized around 7 different annexes or working groups that support a variety of activities. For example, of course, we have the ISGAN Academy that really supports capacity building around smart grid topics. We do work developing tools to assess cost and benefits of smart grids. We develop policy messages for decision makers. We also convene a consortium of laboratories to collaborate on different smart grid protocols, testing protocols, especially on smart inverters and mini grids. And we have a variety of other work too that you should be able to explore more through our website. We're active around the world in Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, and we're very keen to have more participation in other regions as well. So how ISGAN provides value? We do this through knowledge sharing, technical assistance, project coordination, facilitated through our partners at the International Energy Agency, Clean Energy Ministerial, Global Smart Grid Federation, Mission Innovation, and others. And we utilize a broad international expert network, including public and private sector representatives. And we do this to ultimately help support global, regional, and national policy decision-making. We have a variety of outputs. Some examples include policy and technical briefs and papers, webinars, casebooks, and especially our in-depth workshops and conferences. So for today, we, as Fernando mentioned, really want to dive into 3 project examples to illustrate our model around knowledge transfer. So we'll be looking at past events in Mexico City, Belgium, and India, and we'll have representatives from those experiences who can tell you a bit more about those events. And just so you know, we have a detailed terms of reference which provides much more in-depth information on these past events and our approach and models. And so you can find that document. It will be posted along with this recorded webinar. A little background about the motivation for ISGAN starting the Knowledge Transfer Project. So it really stemmed from the 2015 Clean Energy Ministerial when the ministers developed a joint statement to challenge the initiatives to facilitate staff exchanges and peer learning opportunities between regulators, system operators, policymakers, utility staffs to promote skills and knowledge transfer. And we'll dive in deeper about how the Knowledge Transfer Project enables that. And with that, I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Helena.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I'm going to say first a few words about the rationale behind the KTP initiatives and some principles underpinning this work. There's really no shortage of knowledge or solutions in the field of clean energy, as you might know. And one of the biggest challenges in the energy transition is arguably at the organizational level, I think, to effectively disseminate the critical knowledge about technologies and solutions to those that need it and when they need it. And international organizations like ISGAN, I think, have a really important role to promote dissemination of knowledge and solutions globally. And they really have a unique possibility to do so, to provide access to through the strong networks of stakeholders in all the relevant fields in the member countries' government, research, and business communities. The basic assumption behind the KTP concept is really that in a rapidly developing field like smart grids, everyone is constantly learning and no one has access to all the solutions. Therefore, all relevant stakeholders must cooperate and share knowledge and lessons learned with the objective of accelerating the pace of development in this critical field. But it of course, equally important to avoid the costly repetition of effort and duplication of mistakes. And the enormous challenge posed by climate change, of course, puts additional pressure to do this as efficiently as possible. So that's really the background to this initiative. So what is knowledge transfer? Knowledge transfer could very, very shortly be summarized as mechanisms to capture, collect, and exchange knowledge between people. And there are a lot of theories around in various disciplines, including organization theory, sociology, and didactics. But for today, it's enough to say that the KTP approach is based on the following very basic assumptions. Firstly, there is an important distinction between information and knowledge. Put simply, one could say that knowledge is something that is personal and individual, and that comes about as a result of the intellectual processing of information. In other words, knowledge comes about as a result of a learning process, and learning is the key word there. Secondly, we recognize the notion of explicit versus tacit knowledge. And tacit knowledge is often based on practical experience and is generally more difficult to get hold of and document and disseminate because it is embedded in individuals or groups of individuals. So in interactive knowledge transfer projects like the KTPs, the focus lies very much on trying to extract this tacit and embedded knowledge of individuals through facilitating a structured peer-to-peer dialogue. So the purpose of the KTPs is to strive for a higher degree of impact than other more passive approaches like conferences and seminars, where there is often just a handful of people who are active. The KTPs are designed to maximize individual learning and engagement on part of all participants, and also to take advantage of the collective intelligence and experiences of sector stakeholders from different countries and disciplines. So the intention is very much to move away from traditional presentation-based conferences to more hands-on learning opportunities where all participants are actively engaged in both the learning and sharing process, which results in a deeper level of capacity building than is likely from more traditional seminars. So essentially the KTPs have three primary objectives. We want to encourage open and informal dialogue between stakeholders and international peers about lessons learned from grid modernization in different ISGAN countries. We want to promote cross-organizational dialogue inspired by experiences and results achieved in different countries. And we want to create a forum for interactive learning where all participants can genuinely contribute to and benefit from the collective thinking process focused on the development of smart grids. So some key success factors, and you can read much more about all of this in the report that Bethany was referring to earlier. So strong country engagement has been a really important component of the KTP so far, especially in the KTPs held in Mexico and India. Local leadership by the ministries in our partner countries have been really essential. For example, they have helped to identify, engage the right local stakeholders and to help identify focus topics for the KTP. And not to mention the invaluable support on the more practical and logistical side of things. KTPs require significant preparation to ensure effective use of the participants' time, and this includes careful thinking of what topics to be discussed, and how the workshop can be organized to facilitate a really creative and open knowledge exchange. It's also very good if participants can do some preparatory work ahead of meeting face-to-face in a workshop. This makes the dialogue much more focused and to the point. It's also very important to ensure that the right persons are involved. It's a no-brainer really, but it's of course important that they have the right knowledge and experience, but being genuinely engaged and interested in sharing and learning from others is, I would say, the most important success factor. A KTP can be really powerful if it can tie into specific decision or policy-making processes. For example, as you will hear soon, the outcomes from the Mexico KTP were used as input into the design of a national smart grid strategy. And also, it's important to think carefully about process design and facilitation of workshops and the preparatory work before. And depending on the objective and the practical circumstances of a particular KTP, the design and the choice of facilitation technique may differ. So until now, the KTP concept has been implemented in 3 forms. We have a multilateral approach in which all participants are interested in learning and sharing information on a mutual topic of interest with no particular focus on any specific country. So you will soon hear about the KTP on public support to smart grid research and development innovation in that regard. The second type is what we call a country-centric approach, in which a multinational group comes together to help identify potential solutions to a particular country's smart grid challenges. And our example here is the project we did in Mexico. And the third type is a hybrid approach designed as a mix between a country-centric and a multilateral or topical KTP. And our example here is our recent KTP in India. In future, there is also potential for ISGAN to utilize a more implementation-focused knowledge transfer method involving a series of workshops, face-to-face and online, with quite a lot of individual analytical work between meetings. And a project like that would be planned during a longer period of time compared to the ones that we've done so far. But I will now hand over the floor to Magnus and our colleagues from Mexico, India, and the Netherlands, who will describe the experiences from the 3 KTPs we have organized since we started in 2016. So Magnus, take it away.
Thank you, Helena. And I will first then, as you mentioned, starting with Mexico, the case in Mexico, and later in the presentation I will also have a short question and answer session with Mr. Sergio Cortes Lopez from Minister of Energy in Mexico. So this KTP, this knowledge transfer project, it was originating from the Mexican energy transition. Mexico is rapidly increasing integration of variable renewables and distributed energy resources, and with the objective to do this affordably. And smart grid solutions is an important tool in this transition project. So the aim with the KTP was to create a knowledge transfer among experts in the global smart grid community with focus on Mexican case and needs. So what do we mean with a country-centric approach then? We mean that we had a team of international experts and practitioners from the ISGAN community where we aimed at providing advice and support based on Mexico's specific circumstances, sharing knowledge from the global community to the Mexican case. And of course, we also got learnings in the other direction meanwhile, but the focus was actually on the Mexican needs here. And the international expert group was provided with reading material ahead of arriving in Mexico. We also had a briefing session on the state of play of the Mexican grid modernization process with the ministry, and so it was a quite strong preparation of this event. So, yeah, talking about the legislation, that was actually a very strong background to this activity, that we had the energy transition legislation in Mexico that became effective in December 2015, saying things about also smart grid solutions, that that should be part of the transition. And it was furthermore stated that it must be taken into account experiences and lessons learned from deployment in other countries. Therefore, the Ministry of Energy in Mexico, with the support from ISGAN as well as the other SEM initiative, 21st Century Power Partnership, came along with this event as an international activity. And it took place 17 to 19 of August 2016. And the ministry identified a need for a national vision for smart grids. And this was the tool then. We can also mention that we had participants in the workshop, 45 participants. We also had a public conference following the workshop with more than 100 participants. And in the workshop, we had public sector and research present. And then in the public conference, it was more open to industry and other stakeholders. That was the setup. And you can also see the countries that were present with international experts. And we had a very strong setup from the Mexican side of the institutions available. As you see, all present. We had the ministry, we had the CFE, the state-owned utility, we had the regulatory body, and other important and relevant stakeholders. It was really a very strong commitment from Mexico in this activity, in this knowledge transfer. We can just have a look at some examples of what we did in the workshop and how we did it. We structured it into 3 interrelated exercises. We start with the vision, that is a very important part of it, then came into milestones, and finally actions and roles. So that was the setup. So you can see one example of vision here, more renewables with adequate integration to handle variability. An example of a milestone and some actions on the slide here. I don't really go into detail, but you can read further in the report as well. It's just an example of result from the workshop, from the knowledge transfer workshop. We also noted some key takeaways, where you can just start with the first one, to find means to reduce non-technical technical network losses, very important. You can also go on with the second one, to optimize the interaction of smart meters in customer segments and phased implementation. That was really found to be important in the Mexican case, and the rest you can read on your own. But we identified really important areas and key takeaways from the Mexican case. And we also went, of course, deeper, as I said, into assessment of how to work further on this for the Mexican case. Project outcomes, some overall project outcomes. We received input on international lessons learned at a critical point in development of national smart grid strategy. That was really timely. We had the ability to contribute to national report, actually a national report on implementation of smart grids in Mexico being written at the time when we entered with the KTP. We identified key milestones and actions. And of course, we made the network together, international network, and that can actually be used after. That's the beauty of this KTP model, that we can actually work and continue collaborating after KTP is done. So by that, I would like to address a few questions to you, Sergio, if you can be online. Yeah, very quick questions here about the rationale. Maybe I already told it, but maybe you can elaborate on that. Why did you find this interesting from the Mexican perspective to do this KTP? This was actually the pilot KTP for ISGAN.
Okay. Hi everyone. The reasons
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are really supported by KTP in Mexico. We identify the efforts to have been or being made at the international level.
Yeah. Okay.
The idea is to improve the smart grids in Mexico.
Yeah.
We are searching for the specific people who can help us here in Mexico. Searching the key partners with Is everything okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, besides key partners.
Okay, so our government started energetic reform process. As a result of the concept of smart grids, we also apply in the law now the development of smart grids. We establish the goals with to the quality of electricity service, and for this reason we see the need to enjoy efforts for the development of intelligent electrical and
Yeah, thank you, Sergio. Or am I too quick?
okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's yeah, okay. So thank you. I think I move on with next example, if that's fine with you. I go for thank you, Sergio. I go for the next, which is was the public support KTP, knowledge transfer and public support to smart grid research, development and innovation, where we had a large extent of participants from the public funding agencies, and the objective was to improve and to get better results from publicly supported smart grid research, demonstration and innovation projects. by creating a knowledge transfer. So the idea was to understand better the key success factors and challenges in regard to public support. So that was another way of performing KTP. We call it a multilateral approach. So multilateral means that all participants are interested in learning and sharing information on mutual topics of interest. So it's not organized around a specific country, more of a topic. And here you can see some countries and some persons, number of persons present at the event that we had in Genk last year. And the next slide is about how we prepared and carried through the knowledge exchange. It was quite a thorough preparation phase where the project idea came through ISGAN Annex 2 in July 2016, and we worked with some interactive work with some countries ahead of the workshop, and we carried on the workshop, and we also have some work for the future. So it was quite hard work here also for the preparation. We had identified 5 themes for the workshop based on the preparatory work. You see them here. The first one is realizing the full potential of demonstration projects to achieve market uptake, just as an example. And the rest you can read. So it was a way of doing this preparation work to find these discussion themes that was really prepared in advance. So when we meet, we have a well-prepared knowledge transfer workshop. And then we had the workshop, and for again the same number 1 here theme, realizing the full potential, etc. You can see some results from the discussion. Synergy between electrical transport and telecom is a must for success of smart grid demo projects to achieve market uptake, as one example. And you can read furthermore that there is also a theme number 4 about communicating results to the public and so on. And saying that communicate smart grid success stories, make it simple and fashionable. You also see some pictures from the event. Some overall outcomes. We have created a new network of practitioners collaborating on topics related to their work on funding. And we made a detailed comparison of approaches in the 6 countries, and we prioritized key topics of relevance for international dialogue. And there is an executive summary available. We are also planning for a follow-up or a continued work on the KTP in this topic in Vienna in October. And for that continued KTP, we have identified 5 topics out of, we will select 1 or 2 to go deeper into during that event. That's also based on the interest of the participants and experiences, of course. So, yeah, so the first one, for example, is how to design and work with key performance indicators. So I will invite Nicole to give some feedback on what we did in Genk. So are you online?
Yes, I'm online. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the floor. Yeah. I work in the Netherlands for around 8 years now in the field of smart grids and smart energy systems. I do that directly under the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And we are dealing now with the support over 100 projects on innovation level, going on from research and development into demonstration projects. And I think it's really important that if you look at innovation, it's inseparably tied to knowledge transfer, and we see them within the Netherlands both as equally important. So to discuss that in a knowledge transfer system like we did in Genk, we had the opportunity to share our knowledge, our questions with international colleagues dealing with the same question, and it is very useful to see how we all combine our knowledge and information so we can face it all together and learn from each other to make the energy transition happening. So for me it was really worthwhile to deal with this information with colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. That was a clear statement. Thank you so much. Very good. So, yeah, I move on here with the last case here that was actually in November last year in Bangalore in India. And we will also have a small chat with Mr. Sachin Shukla at the Minister of Power's National Smart Grid Mission later. This was a 3-day event, and it was facilitating knowledge sharing in collaboration with the Minister of Power India and also the Central Power Research Institute where we had it physically. And the Indian electricity sector has a tremendous growth in demand and so on. And of course then generation as well, and it's a lot of renewables coming on to the system with an increase in capacity and so on. It's a lot of wind, solar and so forth, and it's a lot of ambition on the smart metering as an example. So the project was designed as a hybrid between a country-centric and a multilateral KTP, and it was a comprehensive work done ahead of the workshop and the event, where National Smart Grid Mission in India held a broad consultation where we came into conclusion that distributed generation, microgrids and smart metering would be the right topics to cover in this knowledge transfer project. We got a strong attendance, as you see, with 35 participants in the workshop, and we had a more open public conference with 87 participants. And here we had the same model as for Mexico, that we had public sector and research present at the workshop, but it was broader and more open for participants in the conference following the workshop. Going back to the workshop, then we structured the workshop in a 3-staged model with identifying, exploring and prioritizing challenges, and we went to knowledge exchange on lessons learned from the international scene, and we generated concrete ideas for solutions and actions. So we were solution and action oriented, of course. And some key takeaways, a long list here, because it was a lot of results from the workshop. And as we see from the top, quite a few of them are on regulatory design being important for things like investment in smart grid R&D, but also into equipment and solutions where depreciation is considered to be much faster on smart grid devices than on big stuff like power transformers and so on, which we all know. We also identified a big list of a large number of project outcomes with 31 challenges and 62 ideas for solutions. And we can all find them in the executive summary and in the report that is available. So by that, I would like to say hello to my final partner for dialogue here, Mr. Sachin Shukla. Are you there?
Hi Magnus. I'm fine.
Hello, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
hello, Magnus.
Yeah, yes. Do you have any spontaneous comments on like the rationale for India to arrange this KTP with the international partners, or some other feedback or experiences? Please feel free.
Yeah. Actually, as Magnus, you pointed out in your opening remarks about this KTP, that India is witnessing a tremendous growth in energy department and in energy demand, and corresponding in the infrastructure. And since 2000, half a billion people have gained access to electricity in India, one of the greatest success stories in electrification as per IEA. So, given the challenges of the 170 gigs of renewable capacity addition, out of which 40 gigs was to come from rooftop solar alone, we thought not only a need to understand the international scenario on technological deployments, but also the need to understand the viable ecosystem with respect to policies, regulations, customer engagement, etc. So the rationale for engaging in KTP was with the intent that the decision makers and experts from participation organizations and countries will brainstorm to discover new ideas for best practices and approach that will aid in accelerating the deployment and pace of deployment of smart metering and microgrids in India. And idea was of leveraging international experience pool for this, so that we could efficiently integrate distributed renewable resources while maintaining reliable, cost-effective and safe delivery of electricity. Yes, Magnus.
Thanks a lot, Sachin. Yeah, thanks a lot. I think anything else to add, or to move on? I think that was very good, very good statement from you, and thank you very much for joining with this testimony. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Something else do you want?
Yeah. No, I'm happy here. So by that, I will hand over to our next speaker, which should be Bethany.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you.
So a little bit about next steps. So we are very keen to explore new approaches and working with you partners, and invite ISGAN members and working groups to propose new topics and structures. We're also open to exploring working with others outside of ISGAN, so feel free to reach out to us and we can see how we might work together. If you're curious about how to initiate a KTP, we have a step-by-step process outlined in the Terms of Reference document. So going forward, we have a few ideas about where we might want to take the KTP in the near future. One could be to do an implementation-focused approach, which would consist of multiple deep dive in-person workshops, kind of utilizing consistent groups of participants and doing sort of interim desk research and remote collaboration. We would also like to work more with others within the Clean Energy Ministerial, such as initiatives like the 21st Century Power Partnership and other strategic partners like Mission Innovation. We think KTPs could also be a good basis for developing casebooks, informing policy messages and synthesis reports, and co-creating solutions to common challenges. So our next event is planned for October of this year in Vienna, and it will be a follow-on to the first public sector KTP. We're seeking 2 to 4 participants from each ISGAN country, and ideally are looking to work with those in the public sector who are actively engaged in strategic or operational decision-making in terms of funding programs for smart grid research and innovation. And with that, I will hand it